One of the most exciting aspects of living on this planet is that we're always starting over in some important arena in our lives. There's never been a time since you have passed the age of 6, perhaps, well, even before that age, when you weren't beginning something new. Something old had ended and something new was beginning. It's always that way. And as we grow older, these turning points seem to increase in number and certainly in the impact that they have upon our lives. Perhaps you're starting over because of divorce, or maybe because of marriage, or because of death. There's been a death that has affected your life. Perhaps it's a career change, retirement, recovery from an addiction, or simply through the understanding that being successfully involved with the process of living requires periodic new beginnings. Each starting over point in life can be a catalyst for spiritual and for personal transformation. All these things that are happening to us are designed to keep us awakened, to keep us alert and on our toes. Now, in the next 3 lessons, I'm going to be addressing each of the subjects that I mentioned in some detail. But tonight what I want to do is to bring us into the sense of an overview of what it means to start over or to begin again, and to have each one of us make a commitment to ourselves to decide now that you're beginning your life all over again, starting now. It's amazing how the world around us has provided a myriad of examples of starting over. Metaphors. The day, for example, is a mini lifetime. It's a miniature lifetime. The dawn breaking or our awakening in the morning is our birth. The dawn is the birth of a day, and the events that happen to us naturally in the course of a day are the events that happened in our lives. What is your life but a series of days lived singularly? And how can you live your life better than you live one day? We've been told again and again, if we could live one day supremely, superbly well, that we can live our lives well. Our lives take on the flavor, the color of each of our days. But how wonderful it is that we don't have to live our lives as a stretched out thing. Suppose that there was just one long day in your life. Now that would be hell, wouldn't it? But there is a beginning and an end. And what is the ending of one day but the beginning of a next? And so it is with all of the events that are happening to you. How many times have you heard it said that when one door closes, another door opens? But in reality, we don't believe that, because all that we hear is the slamming of a door and the disappointment that seems to be when a door slams. We don't hear the gentle opening that occurs simultaneously, which represents another starting point, another beginning. Oh, if we could see that everything that happens to us is affording us an opportunity to move into the next cycle, into the next moment, into the next room, into the next series of experiences. The events that follow in the course of each unfolding day is our lifetime in miniature. Tomorrow, what is tomorrow? But today, on which another door has opened. A week is a cycle of 7 days that represents a new beginning. A month, 4 weeks, a lunar cycle. A year is 12 months, a new year. And what happens at the end of the year? People every year celebrate the coming of a new year, hoping that it will be a new beginning. A new year affords a new starting place. And so often we hope that the new year will be different from last year, but it cannot be different than last year unless we ourselves have become different than we were last year. And it is this difference in ourselves, it is this ability, this capacity that we have to be transformed that we'll be discussing in the lesson tonight and in the 3 lessons that follow. Look at nature. The changing seasons here. Spring, summer, fall, and winter. Have you not wished that your life could change as the seasons change? Well, it can. It can, and it should. But we humans are only beginning to learn that starting over is not an automatic, spontaneous thing such as occurs in nature, but requires a conscious, deliberate choice on our part. And that choice cannot be made until we begin to understand life from a different perspective. And that perspective is that life happens from us. It does not happen to us. We believed that life came to us from the outside. Not so. It happens to us from the inside. But in order to help us to get a better perspective of what it is that I'm sharing with you this evening, I thought I would read to you a letter that was written at the College of Fine Arts, Albany, New York, and it reads thusly. Dear Mother and Dad, it's been 3 months since I left for college. I've been remiss in writing, and I'm very sorry for my thoughtlessness in not having written before. I will bring you up to date now, but before you read this, please sit down. Okay? Well, then I'm getting along pretty well now. The skull fracture and the concussion I got when I jumped out of the window of my dormitory when it caught fire shortly after my arrival are pretty well healed. I only spent 2 weeks in the hospital, and now I can see almost normally, and I get those sick headaches only once in a while. Fortunately, the fire in the dormitory and my jump were witnessed by an attendant at the gas station near the dorm, and he was the one who called the fire department and the ambulance. He also visited me at the hospital, and since I had nowhere to live because of the burned out dorm, he was kind enough to invite me to share his apartment with him. It is really a basement room, but it's kind of cute. He's a very fine boy, and we've fallen deeply in love and are planning to get married. We haven't set the date yet, but we will be married before my pregnancy begins to show. Yes, Mother and Dad, I am pregnant. I know how much you're looking forward to being grandparents, and I know you'll welcome the baby and give it the same love and devotion and tender care that you gave me when I was a child. The reason for the delay in our marriage is that my boyfriend has some minor infection which prevents us from passing our premarital blood test. And I carelessly caught it from him. This will soon clear up with the penicillin injections I'm now taking daily. I know you will welcome him into our family with open arms. He is kind, and although not well educated, he is ambitious. Although he is of a different race and religion than ours, I know that your often expressed tolerance will not permit you to be bothered by these facts. Now that I brought you up to date, I want to tell you that there was no dormitory fire. I did not have a concussion or a skull fracture. I was not in the hospital. I'm not pregnant. I'm not engaged. I don't have syphilis, and there's no one in my life. However, I am getting a D in history and an F in science. And I wanted you to see these marks in their proper perspective. Your loving daughter, Edna. And I wanted you to hear that letter so that perhaps you can see the tragedy that's been happening to you in proper perspective. All that's been happening to you is that you've been getting a D in mental science. That's all. You've been getting some poor grades. And all that you have to do is to make some new decisions, make the commitment that you really are ready to start over. Coming to believe at last that the whole universe is cooperating with you, responding to you. It actually wants you to begin your life again. And then again, and then again, and then again. Life requires constantly that we come up higher and that we be changed. There are no constants in the universe except the principles that we practice to bring about the changes that life wishes us to have. Think of the characters in the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation. All of them are represented by all of us. Those characters are in each one of us. And the thing that made them so attractive time after time was the process that they went through. They were usually getting some poor grades in life. And they changed. Something happened to them. And they were empowered in strange and wonderful ways. And they themselves became different people and were seen and loved in different ways. And their experiences invariably changed according to the change in their perspective about themselves and about life. And always they were used as examples for you and me. Never as exceptions, but always as examples. And in each of their lives, there are the principles that are being taught to us about how we can make the equivalent changes. Now let me give you an example. One of the most amazing stories in the Bible that I have never heard told correctly. The story that's given in the 19th chapter of Genesis. It's the story of Lot and his wife and his 2 virgin daughters. You probably remember the story as the destruction of the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And that God said there were 2 wicked cities and he was going to crush the cities and kill all of the inhabitants. Terrible, terrible story. Terrible, terrible cities. But what no one told you was that this is merely a metaphor. A city in the Bible represents your life as it presently exists. Your life is a city. That's what it means. Now the time comes in each of our lives when the city of our life needs to be left behind us. It needs to be destroyed, doesn't it? And what about the people in the city? The people in the city, the men, represent thoughts, and the women represent feelings. Check out your city, check out your life as it has existed, and see if you don't have a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings that need to be destroyed. Right? And so what happened was that Lot lived in the city, and the Lord God sent 2 angels, 2 men who came to him and told him that he needed to get his family out of the city because it was going to be destroyed. I bet that's happened to you more than once in your life, and probably it has happened to you recently, or you might not be here this evening. You have been getting some indications that some changes are due in your life. Isn't that true? It has been happening to you. The angels have been coming and speaking to you. And you've known that you needed to leave. Now, I'm not talking about leaving this community, but you've known that you needed to step out on faith or to step out into the future. So Lot, after some reluctance, incidentally, the angels told him that he was to leave the city under the instructions and the protection of God and to go up to live in the mountains, meaning the high places, meaning the land of his dreams. You know what Lot said? Really don't want to go up that high. I want to go out and live on the plains, meaning at the same level, in a small city or a small town nearby called Boaz. And the word Boaz means little city. And so what Lot was saying was, God, I really don't want all of my good. All I want is a little change. I really don't want to change very much. I just want to change a little bit. And if you'll check your thinking out, you'll also see that a few minutes ago, when you were nodding your head, and when I was talking about starting over, you were nodding your head saying, yeah, I don't mind starting over as long as it's not too difficult. You know, I'll start over a little bit. Change me a little bit, God, but not too much. Now, Lot's wife, and wives or women always represent what? Emotions. Lot's wife represented our codependency in modern vernacular. You know how we cling to persons? How we cling to the past? How we cling to the mess that we're in? I mean, we're just not going to leave it, even if it kills us. And so Lot's wife was told, or the emotions were told, to not look back longingly, to leave the city, to start over, to begin again, and to not look back longingly. And so Lot's wife left the city like this, walking backwards and saying, I just can't do it. I just can't give up all that I'm locked into. Mary Sue's going to call me tomorrow morning like she always does and to tell me how miserable her life is, and I've just got to be there to take the telephone call. And so she was turned into a pillar of salt meant she was crystallized. She couldn't move forward, and there was no place to go back to. If you look at your life, you'll see there's no place to go back to. And we get caught or trapped between what could be and what was. How many of you have ever been in that place? I'll bet you some of you are in that place right now. You're trapped between what could be and what was. Lot's wife, our negative emotions. So Lot did go out, and he took his daughters with him. They were virgins. And he lived in Boaz for a short time. And then it became unbearable because nothing had happened. He changed, but there was no change. Have you ever had that happen to you? You started over. I moved to California one time to start over. But I only wanted a little change, not a whole lot. And if you only want a little change, you don't get any. Do you know there's no such thing as changing a little bit? You cannot change a little bit. In all of my life, I've never seen anybody change a little bit unless it was getting worse. I've seen some people get a little bit worse, but I never saw anybody get a little bit better. And there's a wonderful reason why. Because when we make the commitment to start over, it is God who does the changing. And God has never changed anything a little bit. So do you want a little bit of a change? You can't have it. Ultimately, you're going to have to go for the high places. You're going to have to go for your dreams. And Lot finally saw what God meant, learned his lesson, and went up into the mountains. And his two daughters, remember they were virgins? One of them, the eldest one, finally tricked him and came in and slept with him and conceived. And then the next night, the second daughter did the same thing. And people who read the Bible say that was a terrible thing. My gosh, those young women who slept with their father. It doesn't mean that at all. Virgin girls represent deep emotions that have never been experienced. The joy that has been waiting to conceive. And so what happened was that Lot went up into the land of his dreams, and the joy that was originally his came in and slept with him. That's what it means. And what it means to you and me is this, that if you and I want to change, we're going to have to get turned on about it. We're going to have to decide that we don't want a little bit of a change, but that we want a lot of change, and that we're going to become really emotional, really committed to progress, to change, to grow. Really excited about it. Willing to not look back, but to look forward eagerly rather than to look back longingly. In other words, we're going to have to give up our codependency. It's really all that that means. Thomas Kelly, a Quaker mystic, wrote some words that really have impressed me. Deep within us all, there's an amazing inner sanctuary of the soul, a holy place, a divine center, a speaking voice to which we may continuously return. Eternity is at our hearts, pressing upon our time-torn lives, warming us with intimations of an astounding destiny, calling us home to itself. Yielding to these persuasions, which is what Lot finally did, and it's what you and I are doing, gladly committing ourselves in body and soul, committing ourselves in body and soul to change, utterly and completely to the light within, is the beginning of true life. It is a dynamic center, a creative life that presses to birth within us. In other words, what Kelly is saying, and he experienced it, is that life is attacking us, really, from the inside out. It wants us to move, to become, to experience, to know, to grow, to be transformed, and to have, to share. It's trying to happen, but it needs our cooperation. That's all that it needs, is for us to say yes to life and to change and to make the commitment, the emotional commitment. When Tom Witherspoon was in ministerial school in our seminary, in order to support himself and his family, he worked part-time as a maintenance man or janitor in a nearby public school building. Tom's background is that of a professional journalist, a newspaper editor, and working as a janitor in this school, he became friends with a little 9 or 10-year-old boy who wouldn't write. Well, he would write, but he wouldn't let anyone know what he wrote. And it was interesting that Tom the journalist became friends with this boy that he found one day crying in a hall, and he stooped down and spoke to him and gave him his attention. Now, that young boy would not let his teacher see anything that he wrote, or his mother, or anyone. And after he and Tom had become friends, and Tom gradually taught him to see how important writing was, and actually gave him some instructions in writing, Tom began to act as the go-between between that young lad and his teacher. Tom graded his papers for him, and one day the boy was encouraged and began to show the teacher and other persons what he was writing. And as the relationship developed, the boy decided to write a story, a detective story, a true story. He decided to become a journalist himself, like Tom. And it seems that a lady in his neighborhood had baked a cherry pie and left it on a windowsill to cool, and when she returned, it had disappeared. It was gone. And so this is where the detective story began. And she saw our little friend and 2 of his playmates nearby, and she asked them if they had seen her cherry pie. And they said, "No, ma'am, but we'll try to help you find it." Whereupon our little friend turned to his playmates and said, "Open your mouths." And startled, they said, "What for?" And he said, "Let's begin with us." And so each one of his friends and he opened their mouths and stuck out their tongues and showed their teeth, and to make sure that there was no incriminating evidence on them of the missing cherry pie. And having convinced themselves that they were innocent, they began a block-by-block search of the neighborhood for the cherry pie. And every kid that they saw, they said, "Open your mouth and stick out your tongue and let me see your hands." And every adult, every cat, every dog they saw, they caught the dogs and cats and pried their mouths open and looked at their tongue. Now, I was so impressed with the first part of the story that I forgot to ask Tom how it turned out. Those kids said, this is what impressed me. They said, "Let's begin with us. Out of the mouths of children come great truths." Now, how about you? Has someone stolen your cherry pie? Was something in your life just hot out of the oven and you left it to cool for a moment? You turned your head just for a moment, and when you look back, it was gone? Would you like to find the culprit? Who would be such a dastardly person to do such a terrible thing to you? Who would rob you of your joy, of your good, your opportunity for advancement, maybe your job itself? Who would do that to you? Who would take from you the love or affection of another person, leaving you alone with only your tears and thoughts of self-pity or revenge? Who would do a thing like that to you? Everything was going so well, you thought, and now it's all fallen apart. How can this happen to a nice person like me? Your intellect said. Then the old religious training came in and answered your question. Based on fear and guilt, your training speaks up and said, well, God did it. That's what happened. God did it to punish me, and this is God's will, and there's nothing that I can do about it. Isn't that wonderful when we decided that there's nothing that we could do about it except just suffer? Nothing was required of us except suffering, and blaming and accusing, of course, and speaking a lot about it. Well, don't listen to that kind of thinking for one moment. God is good, all good, and nothing but good, and nothing but good can ever come from God. God does not need to punish us. We do that well enough ourselves. So if you would like to know what happened to your cherry pie in whatever form that it happened to be baked, then let's begin with us. We are spiritual beings, individualized expressions of God's own Spirit, and Spirit is the power and intelligence of God in action. There's no other power or force or influence in your life. So everything begins for you with you. It begins with you. And it ends with you. So if your good has not begun, it's only because your spirit has not awakened to its good, and this would only be merely missing the mark, which is the basic meaning of the word sin. And that reminds me, did you know that our word mistake, the word mistake is not in the Bible at all, not one time. Instead, the word sin is there in its place. Didn't know that, did you? Now, the word sin occurs in the Bible a zillion times. And it means a mistake or an error, or it means falling short of your spiritual potential. Now, I just committed a sin. I said that sin occurs in the Bible a zillion times. Well, I don't even know what a zillion is. I don't know how many times that the word sin occurs in the Bible. I made a mistake, didn't I? And it was an intentional mistake. You think I'll be forgiven for it? I think so. I'm not going to feel guilty about it. It was merely a mistake. Now, how many times have you made mistakes? About a zillion? I would reckon you've made about a zillion mistakes. And I would think that this is the time to come to cancel them all out. I mean, to really start all over, separating yourself from those mistakes. And you can do that any time that you make a mistake, and every time that you make a mistake. All progress on this earth is the result of making mistakes and observing and examining those mistakes, admitting them, and with the objective or goal of correcting them in mind to release them. But he or she who cannot admit his or her part in the loss of the cherry pie, the making of the mistake that led to the loss of the cherry pie, cannot find the cherry pie. You just have to do without cherry pie, that's all. But if you can admit your part, if you can see your part, hope you're following my drift, then it's possible to have some exciting things happen, but you've got to find the culprit. And who is the culprit? You. For you, me for me. If I want to start over, it begins with me, and it begins with canceling the mistakes. One of the first things that we have to admit in spiritual law is that we cannot lose our own. If we lost it, we didn't have it in the first place. And if we've lost it, then what difference does it make? Let's give it gladly. Let's give the cherry pie away and go bake another one. It's what life is all about. A woman calls, and her voice is hoarse with anger. Her husband is having an affair. She insists that we pray that her husband and the other woman be punished for causing her so much suffering. And we let her talk out her rage, and we pray with her that she will let go of her resentment. We don't talk about the affair or the husband or the other person at all. Why? Because they're not her problem. Can you see that they are not her problem? Can you see that? The problem is her. Does it mean that it did not happen? Of course it happened. But she's never going to find the answers to her life being caught up in the affair that happened, looking for the culprit, going around and opening people's mouths to see if they have had some of her cherry pie. No. It's when she looks in her own mouth that's where she's going to find it. Can this woman go back and see the part that she's played in all of this? Can she see that perhaps it was her own willful ignorance that insisted that she marry that person in the first place? Or can she see that those same attitudes that she's demonstrating now, her anger, her self-concern, are what has pushed that person out of her life? All marriages are destroyed from within. And all businesses and all governments that fail are brought down not from the outside, but they're brought down from the inside. What caused the fall of the Roman Empire? The Roman Empire. Historians will tell you that. And so it is with each one of us. Certainly, no good can come from trying to make other people suffer or from continuing to suffer ourselves. The time has come for starting over, not for accusing, blaming, or looking to see who is at fault. It's by becoming personally responsible. Listen to the 5th chapter of the book of James. Is anyone among you suffering? Is anyone sick? He should call on the elders of the church, or those very special people in your life, your mastermind partners, the elders in your church. And they should pray over him, pouring a little oil on him, and I'm sure that doesn't mean out of a bottle, but it means the oil of human kindness. How does it make you feel when someone accepts you just as you are in the midst of your problems and your mistakes? And they will not join you in your misery, but they hold you close in their arms of love. And their prayers, if offered in faith, in expectancy, will heal him, for the Lord will make him well, and if his sickness was caused by some sin, by some mistake, the Lord will forgive him. Sometimes we get sick because we ate too much cherry pie that didn't belong to us. Admit your faults, your sins one to another, and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The earnest prayer of a righteous person, meaning one who can examine himself and begin to understand the spiritual law, has great power and wonderful results. Let's take Elijah, for example. He was completely human as we are, and yet when he prayed earnestly that no rain would fall, no rain fell for 3.5 years. You say, well, why would he do a thing like that? Well, we've done it. I'll bet you've had periods in your life when no good fell in it for 3.5 years as a result of praying negatively, as a result of negative emotions. Every negative emotion that you demonstrate is a prayer. It's a prayer. And it turns off the good. When Elijah found out what was happening to him and decided to change his attitudes, and he prayed that the rain would fall, and you know that it started raining, and it looked like it never was going to stop, and the grass turned green, and the pastures grew. It's remarkable. But all that Elijah was doing was demonstrating to us that sometimes upon self-examination, we find that we too have been praying negatively by thinking and feeling negatively. And the rain has stopped falling, and the flow of blessings into our lives has diminished. There's a drought of good. And that's what a starting over commitment means. That we're separating ourselves from the events, both good and bad. It's a new starting place, a new commitment with a new excitement, and a new relationship with God in which all things and all persons are forgiven, and we're stepping out of the burning city, out of the past, and we're going up into the high places that our minds have already selected for us. There's a story of David, a young attorney from Dallas. And it happens that I'm his sponsor, and once some time ago, he called me. Been a long season of great good, and then he fell asleep. And the good stopped falling. And sometime after that, he stopped by to visit some mutual friends who by chance were in the middle of a mastermind meeting with another couple, and they invited David to stay. And he got so turned on that he started a mastermind group of his own and started getting up half an hour early in the morning to meditate, loving it and loving his life. And not long after that, he called me to say that it isn't working yet. He said, I'm doing all this stuff and it's not working yet. And I said, David, let's begin with you. Why is it not working? Tell me why it isn't working. And he said, I don't know. And I said, of course you do. Just examine yourself just for a moment. And David started talking, and within 10 minutes he told me all the reasons why it wasn't working, and we agreed. And I said, okay, I'm the elder in your church. I didn't mean that like church talk. I'm your sponsor, and I'm going to pray for you right now. And David said, I didn't hear you pray. And I said, I've already done it. I did it when I said it. And he said, do you think it'll work? And I said, call me back in a week and let me know. And he called me back a week later with the most amazing results. He was filled with excitement and happiness. He'd started his life all over again. And it all began with David, including waking up, examining the situation, assuming personal responsibility, clearing away the past without blame or guilt, and beginning a new cycle, putting God in charge. Among the giants of all time in understanding the problems that the human race encounters in our search for a fulfilled living is the late Dr. Carl Jung. There's some bits of distilled wisdom that sum up his insights, born of a long, productive career that deserves more than casual attention. And for instance, in his book, The Undiscovered Self, listen to what he wrote. There's a positive answer only when the individual is willing to fulfill the demands of rigorous self-examination and knowledge. If he or she follows through his intention of examining, of observing yourself, watching yourself, turning your attention back upon yourself, listening to what you say, writing down your thoughts, observing carefully. He will also have his hand, as it were, to a declaration of his own dignity, and he will have taken the first step towards the foundation of a new and exciting consciousness. And I would submit to you that the unexamined life, according to Plato, is not worth living. There are no changes unless we are willing to examine ourselves, and the word really means to inspect or to scrutinize carefully. You know who stole your cherry pie, don't you? You don't have to think about it anymore, but start looking at what is really coming from you. Listen to what you say in conversations, and you will be absolutely amazed at some of the things that you hear yourself say that speak to the past. It's like walking backwards, trying to go forward, looking back at the past, and talking about what you don't want. It is absolutely amazing how we're caught up with what doesn't even exist anymore, isn't it? Do you want to begin again? Do you want to start over? Then let's turn around and go in the other direction and only think those things and speak those things that have to do with where you are going. And if what you're saying doesn't fit where you're going, don't say it. And if you catch yourself saying it, stop and bite your tongue. And I mean literally do that. There was a time in my life when I used to bite my tongue and pinch myself and step on my toe and turn around 3 times. Whatever it took for me to not talk about that or think about it, but to move forward into my good, that's exactly what I did. And that's your assignment until the next lesson, to do that. Because you can't start over unless you're willing to do it. There's no starting point unless it begins with you, with what you think, with what you feel, and with your commitment. The word examine means to weigh accurately. And if you really don't know how to weigh yourself accurately, then get Lenore Scott's Personal Inventory cassette tapes. They're available in our bookstore. If you're listening on cassette, you can order them from the same address that's on the cassette to which you're listening at this moment. Somehow what I've just said reminds me of Tom Witherspoon again. I wonder if he would be the person that he is today. And I saw him not long ago, and he's the best Tom he's ever been in his life. If he had not befriended and been concerned about that small boy that day in school, when he was working as a janitor while he was going to the seminary. See, Tom had made a commitment to start his life over. He had a successful career as an editor, as a journalist, and had published some books. But he decided that he wanted to do something different with his life, something other with his life. Suppose he'd been so caught up in himself, wondering why someone with his credentials had to be pushing a broom as a janitor in a grade school, that he couldn't notice a small boy sobbing and bend down to comfort him. This week, observe yourself being caught up in your own stuff and stop it. And look around just to put a loving on someone else. Just to love them, to observe them. Tom and I talked about how miraculous the timing was for him. He was at the right place at exactly the right time. You see, in the spiritual universe, only the servants are served. Did you know that? If we are self-serving, we're not going to be served. It is astonishing how the universe responds to you and me if in our commitment to change, if everything that we do is designed to fit us, to be of maximum service to the people around us. We can ask for anything, and it will be given to us. But the universe does not want our changes to cause us to be more self-serving. That's what we're getting away from, isn't it? We're stepping out of the city of selfishness. We're stepping out of the city of worry and of fear. We're moving forward into the land of our dreams, into the high places. And you can ask for anything as long as what you ask for, as long as your commitment is to become a new and different person, knowing that whatever it is that comes to you is going to fit you, to be of maximum service, to become an angel of the Lord, to become an example for other people, to become an exciting person who has made your own demonstration. See, one of the nice things about a cherry pie is that you can always make another one. So someone took it. So you're good it didn't happen. Let's say that it was no one's fault. It's a no-fault universe. It's no fault. And if you lost it, give it to them. So someone stole something from you, they took it. Whether it be a relationship, release it. Let it go. Freely, generously. Make it a gift. So someone left you, and you're saddened. Make your decision to leave them. Not in anger, but in understanding. You can't lose your good. But if you cling to something that you don't have, you will never find your good. You understand? I once talked to a mother who was clinging to her daughter who had died some 5 or 6 years before that. And this woman was a brilliant, capable, responsible, had been a responsible person. But she got so caught up in her sorrow, and her sorrow was not so much for her daughter as it was for herself. Her sorrow was that she no longer had her daughter. And because of her sorrow, she had a very negative impact on other adult children that she had and other family members and people who knew and loved her. And I saw that woman change as a result of someone making a simple statement that got her attention. And she made a commitment to start her life over again. And within 6 months, the change in her was so absolutely dramatic, and she was living a life of service to other persons, and she was happier than she had ever been at any time in her entire existence. And the beauty that blossomed from her was a lovely thing to behold. Wonderful. But she started over. She made a new beginning. She cleared away the wreckage of the past. She observed herself, and she became responsible, and she decided that she would never be that way, that she would no longer be a Lot's wife looking back at what no longer existed, but that she would move forward gracefully into the new and into the promised land of good. And it happened, and it was as though a power took charge of her life. There is an inner power that's in charge of our lives. And it says, see, I'm making all things new. Write this down, for what I tell you is trustworthy and true. It is finished. I will give to the thirsty the springs of the water of life as a gift. Everyone who conquers himself or herself will inherit all these blessings. And I will be his God. And they will be my children. How about you? Are you willing to give up your old ideas, your inner posture, your fears and your suffering? Are you willing to turn your will and your life over to the care of a power greater than yourself that already has plans for you? And are you willing to be changed first and have your life unfold later? I simply do not have the words to tell you how years ago, when I discovered that I could begin my life again as though I had never lived it, that I could create a new existence, a new world, without having to pay the consequences of the past if I would step out of the past. It was the greatest gift that life has ever given to me, and I'm still living in the joy of that changing gift. And about that time, someone handed me a copy of a poem that you've heard many times, and the fact that you've heard it doesn't mean that I'm not going to read it to you again, because I am. It's by Walter Malone, and it's called Opportunity. And listen, because it's speaking to you. They do me wrong who say I come no more, when once I knock and fail to find you in. Every day I stand outside your door and knock and bid you wake to rise and fight and win. Wail not for precious chances passed away. Weep not for golden ages on the wane. Each night I burn the records of the day. At sunrise, every soul is born again. Dost thou behold thy lost youth all aghast? Dost reel from righteous retribution's blow? Then turn from blotted archives of the past and find the future's pages white as snow. Art thou a mourner? Rouse thee from thy spell. Art thou a sinner? Sins may be forgiven. Each morning gives thee wings to fly from hell, each night a star to guide thy feet to heaven. Laugh like a boy at splendors that have sped. To vanished joys be blind and deaf and dumb. My judgments seal the dead past with its dead, but never bind a moment yet to come. Though deep in mire, wring not your hands and weep. I lend my arm to all who say, I can. No shame-faced outcast ever sank so deep, but yet might rise. Be a man. And all that we have to do, start over. That's the way it really is.